Scientist Sora stepped forward, carrying data tablets filled with her research on human problem-solving methods. "I have studied Minho's techniques extensively," she announced. "Humans don't just think logically, they think creatively. They combine information in ways our minds cannot predict. They find solutions by breaking rules we didn't even know existed." The council chamber buzzed with discussion as delegates from different worlds shared their own experiences with the new hybrid technologies. The mining colonies reported that human-inspired maintenance techniques had extended equipment lifespans. By centuries, the research stations had made breakthrough discoveries by combining human creativity with Valerian computational power. Minho finally spoke, his voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber. "On Earth, we have a saying too, heads are better than one. But I think what we're really talking about here is different kinds of thinking working together. Your people see the universe in ways humans can't imagine. You understand quantum mechanics like we understand breathing. But sometimes you need someone who's willing to hit something with a hammer when the quantum field generator won't cooperate." Laughter rippled through the chamber, a sound that seemed strange coming from beings who normally communicated through color patterns and harmonic frequencies. But Minho's joke captured something important about the partnership they were proposing. Elder Temin raised his hand for silence. "The High Council has reached a decision. We formally invite humanity to join the Valerian Confederation as chief engineers and innovation specialists. Minho of Earth, will you serve as the first human ambassador to our alliance?" The moment felt surreal to Minho. Just weeks ago, he had been a simple research engineer studying mineral samples in the Outer Rim. Now he was being offered a position that would shape the future of galactic civilization. But as he looked around at the faces of beings who had welcomed him, taught him, and learned from him, he knew there was only one answer. "I accept," Minho said simply. "But I want to bring more humans here, engineers, mechanics, problem solvers, and dreamers. This partnership will work best when both our peoples are learning from each other." The crystal chamber erupted in celebration, as delegates from across the galaxy welcomed humanity into their cosmic community. Outside the great windows, Valerian ships began launching toward Earth, carrying the first diplomatic mission that would unite two civilizations in the greatest engineering project ever attempted, exploring and understanding the infinite mysteries of the universe itself. As Minho watched the ships disappear into the star-filled void, he smiled. Somewhere out there, human creativity and alien technology were about to combine in ways that would revolutionize everything they thought they knew about what was possible. But the real test came when Minho began bringing the automated systems back online. One by one, he restored AI control to different sections of the core. But now each AI was buffered by mechanical safeguards that prevented them from overwhelming each other. The hybrid system worked like a perfectly tuned orchestra, with the mechanical components acting as conductors to keep the digital musicians in harmony. Core stability at 60% and rising, Sung called out, his forearms dancing across controls with newfound confidence. He was no longer just following computer instructions, he was feeling the system's rhythm and making intuitive adjustments based on the vibrations and energy patterns Minho had taught him to recognize. The transformation was incredible to watch. The quantum fusion core, which had been writhing like a caged star for days, gradually settled into a steady, powerful glow. The field generators stopped their erratic pulsing and began working together in perfect synchronization. Throughout the city above, lights began burning steady and bright for the first time since the crisis began. Commander Yuna arrived just as the core reached full stability. Her skin blazed with patterns of joy and relief as she watched the displays, showing normal operation across all systems. "Minho," she said, her voice barely containing her emotions, "you have saved 12 million lives." But Minho was already thinking ahead. "This is just the beginning," he said, studying the data flowing across Sora's screens. "Your system is more stable now than it was before the crisis started. The mechanical safeguards aren't just preventing problems, they're actually making the whole core more efficient." Sora had been documenting everything, her advanced recording devices capturing not just Minho's technical solutions but his entire approach to problem solving. What fascinated her most was how he combined logical analysis with pure instinct, making leaps of understanding that their most powerful computers couldn't match. "Watch this," Sora said to the gathered engineers, replaying footage of Minho diagnosing the original alignment problem. "He identifies the issue in minutes, using only his hands and eyes. Our quantum analysis systems needed hours of calculation to reach the same conclusion." The recording showed something that amazed the Valerians. Minho, thinking with his whole body, He didn't just analyze data, he felt the machinery's rhythms, listened to its sounds, and trusted his instincts when something seemed wrong. It was a completely different way of understanding technology. Humans possess something we have forgotten, Sora continued, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. They maintain direct connection with their tools and machines. They don't just command technology, they collaborate with it. Over the following hours, as the city returned to normal operation, word spread throughout Valerian society about the miraculous human engineer who had saved their civilization. But more than just solving their crisis, Minho had opened their eyes to possibilities they had never considered. Young Valerian engineers began experimenting with hands-on troubleshooting techniques. They discovered that their sensitive nervous systems, evolved over millions of years, could detect problems that their instruments missed. They started trusting their instincts alongside their calculations, leading to breakthroughs in efficiency and reliability. The most remarkable discovery came when Sung, inspired by his work with Minho, began teaching other technicians the human method of engineering. He showed them how to feel electromagnetic resonances through their fingertips, how to diagnose problems by listening to subtle changes in machinery sounds, and how to make intuitive adjustments based on experience rather than programming. We became so advanced that we forgot how to be intelligent, Sung explained to a group of fascinated students. Minho showed us that the best technology combines artificial intelligence with natural intuition. Sora's documentation revealed something profound about human problem-solving abilities. Humans didn't just follow logical sequences, they made creative leaps, combined seemingly unrelated concepts, and found solutions by thinking outside established patterns. Their brains worked differently than Valerian minds, approaching problems from angles that pure logic couldn't reach. Human creativity is not chaotic, Sora noted in her research files. It is a different kind of order, one that finds patterns, where we see only random events. The power core now ran better than it had in centuries. The hybrid system Minho designed became the template for upgrading infrastructure throughout Valerian space. But more importantly, an entire civilization had rediscovered the joy of working with their hands, of trusting their instincts, and of seeing technology as a partner rather than a master dot. As Minho stood watching the stable quantum fusion core, its gentle glow lighting the chamber like an artificial sun, he smiled with satisfaction. He had not only saved a city, he had helped an entire species remember what they had lost in their rush toward perfection. 2 weeks after saving the Valerian power core, Minho found himself standing in the most magnificent chamber he had ever seen. The High Council's meeting hall was carved from a single, massive crystal that seemed to contain entire galaxies within its walls. Swirling nebulae and distant stars moved through the transparent structure, making it feel like standing inside the universe itself. Elder Taman, the ancient leader of the Valerian High Council, was over 3,000 years old and had witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. His skin bore permanent patterns of deep wisdom, and his eyes held the weight of millennia. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the crystal chamber like distant thunder. In all my years, Elder Taman began, addressing the assembled council members, I have never seen a single individual change the course of our civilization so dramatically. This human Minho of Earth has shown us truths we had forgotten in our pursuit of technological perfection. The council chamber filled with representatives from across Valerian space. There were delegates from the mining colonies of Altair Prime, where massive machines extracted rare elements from asteroid belts. Scientists arrived from the research stations orbiting binary pulsars, their bodies adapted to survive in extreme gravitational fields. Even the mysterious deep space explorers who spent decades in the void between galaxies had come to witness this historic moment. Minho stood calmly in the center of the chamber, wearing a simple jumpsuit that the Valerians had created for him. Unlike their flowing robes embedded with quantum processors, his clothing was purely functional pockets for tools, reinforced areas for hands-on work, and fabric that could withstand the rigors of actual engineering. To the Valerians, this practical approach to even clothing design was revolutionary. The human method has already transformed our infrastructure, reported Chief Engineer Yuna, her skin glowing with patterns of excitement. Power efficiency across our colonies has improved by 47%. System failures have dropped to nearly zero. But more importantly, our young engineers are rediscovering the joy of creation. She activated a holographic display showing Valerian space, hundreds of star systems, connected by faster-than-light communication networks and massive transport ships that looked like living creatures. We propose something unprecedented, continued. A formal alliance with humanity, not as subjects or clients, but as equal partners in galactic exploration. The proposal sent ripples of amazement through the assembled delegates. The Valerian Confederation had absorbed dozens of species over the millennia, but always as junior partners who contributed raw materials or labor. Never before had they offered full partnership to a species they had just discovered. Elder Teeman gestured toward a section of the chamber where holographic images began displaying the wonders of the galaxy. Massive space stations that looked like metallic flowers bloomed between the stars. Living ships grown from modified organisms traveled between dimensions. Ancient ruins on forgotten worlds held secrets that could reshape reality itself. We have the technology to travel between galaxies, the Elder explained to Minho. We can manipulate matter at the quantum level, create artificial life forms, and bend space-time to our will. But we have lost something essential, the ability to truly understand what we have built. The images shifted to show recent disasters across Valerian space. A colony ship that had become lost because its AI navigation system couldn't adapt to unexpected asteroid fields. A terraforming project that had failed because automated systems couldn't handle the chaos of evolving ecosystems. Research stations that had been abandoned because their self-repairing systems had become too complex for anyone to maintain. Human intuition and adaptability could solve problems we didn't even know we had, continued Elder Teeman. Your species possesses something we desperately need, the wisdom to know when simple solutions are better than complex ones. Your AIs are amazing, he said, but they're talking to each other so fast they're creating feedback loops. If we install physical breaks in the system, actual switches that take time to operate, we can force the corrections to happen at a pace the quantum field can handle. The room fell silent. Outside, the city's lights continued to flicker as the power core's instability grew worse. Transport pods had stopped flying entirely, and the massive manufacturing complexes that floated above the city were slowly descending toward emergency landing platforms. Commander Yuna looked at the gathered scientists, then back at Minho. The human solution seemed impossibly primitive, but their most advanced systems had failed completely. The cascade failure was accelerating, and their computer models predicted total core collapse within 18 hours. If that happened, 12 million Valerians would die when their city's life support systems went dark. How long would it take to implement your solution? She asked quietly. Minho looked at the holographic display again, mentally calculating the work involved. Give me access to your fabrication systems and a team of engineers willing to get their hands dirty. We can have the first mechanical breakers installed in 6 hours. The Valerian scientists exchanged glances. Their fabrication systems could create anything at the molecular level, but they hadn't built actual mechanical devices in centuries. The idea of working with physical tools instead of quantum manipulation fields was completely foreign to them. As alarms continued to wail across the dying city, Commander Yuna made a decision that would change everything. Do it, she ordered. Jin will give him whatever he needs. The massive elevator that carried them down to the power core maintenance level moved so smoothly that Minho barely felt the descent. Council leader Hannah stood beside him, her tall frame radiating disapproval through shifting patterns of dark red across her skin. She had been overruled by Commander Yuna, but that didn't mean she had to like putting their civilization's survival in the hands of a primitive alien. This is madness, Hannah muttered as they descended through layers of the city. We are trusting quantum fusion technology to mechanical switches that belong in a museum. Minho ignored her complaints, focusing instead on the incredible sight around him. The elevator shaft passed through the heart of Valerian civilization, revealing layer after layer of floating platforms, each one humming with advanced technology. Robots that looked like liquid metal flowed along the walls, maintaining systems with perfect precision. Yet despite all this advancement, their city was dying because no one remembered how to flip a switch manually. When the elevator doors opened, Minho stepped into a cathedral of pure energy. The quantum fusion core hung in the center of a spherical chamber nearly a kilometer wide, its surface rippling with contained star fire. Thousands of field generators surrounded it like metallic petals, each one crackling with barely controlled power. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained forces that could tear apart atoms. Valerian technician Sung was waiting for them, his forearms already busy with holographic displays showing the core's deteriorating status. Unlike the other Valerians, Sung seemed genuinely excited about Minho's plan. His skin showed patterns of curiosity mixed with nervous energy. The cascade is getting worse, Sung reported. We have maybe 14 hours before total collapse. The quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Minho walks slowly around the core's containment area, studying the massive installation with eyes that had learned to see beyond surface complexity. While the Valerians saw elegant quantum field generators and sophisticated control systems, Minho saw energy flow patterns, heat distribution problems, and stress points that their automated systems couldn't detect. "There," he said suddenly, pointing to a section where the field generators seemed to be working harder than the others. "That's where the resonance started. See how those generators are glowing brighter?" Sung checked his instruments, and his eyes widened. "You are correct. The quantum field density is 18% higher in that sector, but our sensors showed normal readings until yesterday." "Your sensors are measuring the wrong things," Minho explained, pulling out tools from his salvaged kit. "They're looking at quantum signatures and energy outputs, but they're missing the physical stress on the hardware. This generator housing is overheating because it's working too hard to compensate for a mechanical alignment problem." What happened next amazed every Valerian in the chamber. Minho actually touched the generator housing with his bare hand, feeling for temperature variations and vibrations that their sophisticated sensors couldn't detect. The Valerians watched in fascination as this primitive alien diagnosed their most advanced technology using nothing but his sense of touch. "The mounting bracket is loose," Minho announced after running his hands along the generator's base. "It's creating micro-vibrations that throw off the quantum field alignment. Your AIs keep trying to compensate, but they're fighting against a physical problem with digital solutions." Sung's skin flashed bright blue with amazement. "Our diagnostic systems never detected any mechanical faults. Everything showed green status." "That's because your systems are too smart," Minho replied, with a grin. "Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty and actually feel what's happening." Working together, they began implementing Minho's solution. The Valerian fabrication systems created the mechanical components he designed: simple circuit breakers, manual switches, and physical isolation valves that could operate independently of the AI network. But the real magic happened when Minho showed Sung how to install them, instead of using the precise robotic arms that Valerians normally employed. Minho insisted on hands-on work. He showed Sung how to feel when a connection was properly seated, how to listen for the subtle sounds that indicated proper alignment, and how to trust instinct over instrument readings. "Feel this," Minho said, guiding Sung's hand to a junction box they were installing. "The vibration tells you everything you need to know. If it feels wrong, it probably is wrong." Sung's forearms trembled as he experienced something completely new: the direct physical connection between engineer and machine. For the first time in his life, he understood what his ancestors must have felt when they built things with their own hands, instead of commanding robots to do the work. Other Valerian technicians gathered to watch this unprecedented demonstration. They saw their colleague learning to diagnose problems through touch, to make adjustments based on intuition rather than computer analysis, and to understand machinery as a living system rather than a collection of components. "Incredible," whispered one of the observers. "He is making Sung think like the machine itself." Even council leader Hannah found herself drawn into the process. When Minho asked her to hold a component while he made adjustments, she discovered that her sensitive Valerian fingers could detect variations in electromagnetic fields that their instruments missed entirely. "Your people haven't lost your engineering abilities," Minho explained as they worked. "You've just forgotten how to use them. Every Valerian I've met has incredible sensitivity to energy patterns and mechanical vibrations. You just need to trust your instincts again." As the hours passed, something remarkable happened. The Valerian technicians began working differently. Using their hands and sensors alongside their advanced tools, they started catching problems that their automated systems had missed, making intuitive adjustments that improved efficiency beyond what their computers had calculated as optimal. The mechanical safeguards were coming together beautifully, creating a hybrid system that combined Valerian quantum technology with human engineering intuition. For the first time since the crisis began, the core's fluctuations started to stabilize. The moment of truth arrived at exactly 3:47 a.m. Valerian time. Minho stood before the main control panel, his hands hovering over the first mechanical switch they had installed. Around him, dozens of Valerian engineers held their breath, their skin patterns shifting between hope and terror. The quantum fusion core continued its deadly fluctuations, each pulse bringing them closer to total collapse. "Remember," Minho said, to Sung, who was positioned at the secondary control station, "we're not fighting the system, we're giving it time to think. With steady hands trained by years of emergency repairs in deep space, Minho began flipping switches in a carefully planned sequence. Each mechanical breaker clicked into place with a satisfying sound that seemed impossibly primitive in the high-tech chamber, but as each section of the automated system was temporarily isolated, something remarkable happened. The chaotic quantum fluctuations began to slow down. Like a frantic heartbeat gradually returning to normal, the core's energy patterns started finding their natural rhythm. The AI systems, no longer trapped in their feedback loops, began making corrections at a pace the quantum fields could actually handle. Scientist Sora watched her instruments in amazement. "The resonance cascade is breaking apart," she announced, her voice filled with wonder. "The field generators are synchronizing properly for the first time in days." The emergency alarms screamed through the cramped cockpit as Minho fought desperately with the controls of his research vessel. Sparks flew from damaged panels while warning lights painted his face red in the darkness of space. His small ship, the Soul Explorer, had been studying mineral compositions near the outer rim when a massive solar flare knocked out half his systems. Come on, Minho muttered in Korean, his hands dancing across manual backup controls that most modern pilots never learned to use. The navigation computer was completely fried, leaving him flying blind toward what looked like a habitable planet on his emergency scanners. Blue and green swirled beneath white clouds. It looked promising, but landing without proper thrusters would be like threading a needle while blindfolded. The ship hit the atmosphere like a meteor, shaking violently as heat built up around the hull. Minho's training as an old-school engineer kicked in, while other pilots relied entirely on automated landing systems. He had learned to feel his ship, to understand every vibration and sound. He used the planet's gravity to his advantage, skipping off the upper atmosphere twice to slow his descent before finally committing to a controlled crash landing. The Soul Explorer plowed through alien trees that looked like giant purple ferns, before slamming into a crystalline hillside. Metal screamed against rock as the ship carved a deep furrow in the strange soil. When everything finally stopped moving, Minho found himself hanging upside down in his harness, bleeding from a dozen cuts. With his life support failing fast, his environmental suit had been punctured in 3 places, and the ship's life support was completely dead. Most humans would have panicked, but Minho immediately started problem solving. He grabbed his emergency toolkit and began cannibalizing parts from the damaged ship, using strips of metal from the hull, some spare wire, and even his belt buckle. He created patches for his suit and rigged a primitive air recycling system. The work was brutal and precise. Every movement had to count because his oxygen was running out. Minho's hands, steady from years of fixing broken equipment on remote space stations, twisted wires and sealed connections with the focused intensity of a surgeon. He had learned these skills from his grandfather, who had been a mechanic during Earth's early space exploration days when everything had to be fixed by hand. Just as his improvised life support system clicked online, giving him precious additional hours, strange sounds echoed from outside the wreckage. Footsteps, but not quite human. Multiple beings were approaching, communicating in musical tones that rose and fell like an alien symphony. Through a crack in his damaged viewport, Minho saw them. The Valerians stood nearly 8 feet tall with graceful elongated limbs and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their leader, who would later introduce herself as Commander Yuna, moved with fluid precision as she examined the crash site. Her large, multifaceted eyes reflected the emergency lights still blinking inside Minho's ship. The Valerians used some kind of energy tool to carefully cut through the twisted metal of the Soul Explorer. When they finally reached Minho still hanging in his harness with his jury-rigged life support system humming around him, they froze in amazement. Commander Yuna's skin shifted to deep blue patterns that Minho would later learn indicated extreme surprise. They had expected to find a corpse. The impact forces alone should have killed any living being they knew of, and the toxic atmosphere of their planet was deadly to most carbon-based life forms. Yet here was this strange alien creature, not only alive but actively working to keep himself that way using primitive tools and salvaged materials. What truly shocked them was Minho's repairs. The Valerians had mastered nanotechnology thousands of years ago. Their tools could reconstruct matter at the molecular level, and their ships healed themselves automatically when damaged. They had forgotten what it meant to fix something with your bare hands, to understand machinery through touch and instinct rather than computer analysis. As they carefully extracted Minho from the wreckage, Commander Yuna marveled at his makeshift life support system. It was crude by their standards, held together with wire and metal scraps, but it worked perfectly. The design showed an intuitive understanding of airflow, pressure dynamics, and resource conservation that their own automated systems handled. Through complex algorithms, Minho, barely conscious but still alert enough to observe his rescuers, noticed something that would prove crucial later. Despite their advanced technology, the Valerians handled his simple mechanical repairs with something approaching reverence. Their own tools were elegant and powerful, but they seemed to have lost the fundamental understanding of how things actually worked. As they carried him toward their crystalline city that rose like a symphony of light from the alien landscape, neither Minho nor his rescuers realized they were about to change the course of galactic history. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations need to remember the simple truths that built their foundations. And sometimes it takes a crashed human engineer with dirty hands and an old toolkit to show them the way forward. That's 3 days after Minho's rescue, the beautiful crystal spires of the Valerian city began to dim. What started as a minor fluctuation in the power grid quickly escalated into something far more terrifying. The massive quantum fusion core that powered their civilization of 12 million beings was experiencing what their computers called a cascade resonance failure. A problem so complex that even their most advanced artificial intelligence systems couldn't predict the next step. Minho was still recovering in the medical facility when the emergency sirens began wailing across the city. The sound was unlike anything on Earth, a harmonic frequency that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Through the transparent walls of his recovery room, he watched as the city's lights flickered like dying stars. Floating transport pods that normally glided smoothly between buildings started jerking erratically before emergency landing on nearby platforms. Commander Yuna rushed into his room, her skin cycling through rapid color changes that Minho had learned indicated extreme stress. Behind her came a young Valerian scientist named Jinwoo, whose usual calm demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. His forearms moved constantly, manipulating holographic displays that showed increasingly chaotic energy patterns. The core is dying, Jinwoo explained in broken English, which he had been learning since Minho's arrival. Our quantum engineers work for 2 days straight. Nothing helps. The cascade grows stronger every hour. Minho struggled to sit up, his body still aching from the crash. Show me the technical specifications, he said, surprising both Valerians. They had assumed he would be too primitive to understand their advanced technology. What happened next amazed the entire Valerian scientific community. Jinwoo projected a 3-dimensional hologram of their power core, a massive sphere suspended in the center of their city, surrounded by thousands of quantum field generators, each one controlled by its own artificial intelligence system. The core itself was beautiful and terrifying, a miniature star contained within layers of energy fields that bent space and time. Minho studied the display for nearly an hour, asking questions that made the Valerian scientists exchange confused glances. He didn't ask about quantum mechanics or dimensional physics. Instead, he wanted to know about heat dissipation, pressure release valves, and mechanical backup systems. When Jinwoo admitted they had removed most manual controls centuries ago in favor of automated systems, Minho's face went pale. You've got a resonance loop, Minho said finally. Your AI systems are trying to correct each other faster than the physics can keep up. It's like having 1,000 drivers all trying to steer the same car at once. The Valerian engineers gathered around the hologram couldn't understand how this primitive alien had identified their problem so quickly. Their quantum computers had run millions of simulations without reaching the same conclusion. Senior engineer Hannah, whose crystalline implants glowed with processing power, shook her head in disbelief. Impossible, she said. Our systems are perfectly coordinated. Each AI communicates with the others 17,000 times per second. That's exactly the problem, Minho replied, pulling himself to his feet despite his injuries. You're overthinking it. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. What Minho proposed next shocked everyone in the room. He wanted to install physical circuit breakers, mechanical switches that could manually isolate sections of the power grid. The idea of using actual moving parts in their quantum fusion system seemed absurd to the Valerians. Their technology had evolved beyond such crude mechanical devices millennia ago. You want to put mechanical switches on a quantum fusion core? Jinwoo asked, his skin shifting to patterns of confusion and disbelief. That is like putting wooden wheels on a starship. But Minho was already sketching designs on a borrowed tablet, his engineering mind working through the problem with the kind of hands-on intuition that the Valerians had lost. He explained how mechanical systems could act as buffers, preventing the cascade failures that occurred when automated systems tried to correct each other too quickly.